Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to On Cash Flow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. Creating rules for yourself can allow you to build a system that is going to allow you to reach the goals that you want to reach. And that's why following rules and creating systems is one of the most important things you can do in order to achieve financial independence. I myself followed many rules that I set for myself to get me to where I am today. And the very first one that I want to share with you today is becoming a self-proclaimed minimalist. So I set this up as a rule for myself to say, hey, I'm a minimalist. If people ask me, that's what I'm going to say. And really what this means is it can mean a lot of things. But for me, it means just not having too much stuff. It's pretty much that simple. I believe that simply by proclaiming yourself to be minimalist, it's going to almost automatically lead to you making fewer purchases. It's about just making fewer purchases and living a good life with less stuff. That is kind of like the whole, broad-based idea of being a self-proclaimed minimalist. And it doesn't have to be anything kind of extreme. I like to think I don't take it to the extreme, but I do wear these plain black t-shirts all the time, okay? And that's, I guess, would be considered a little bit extreme. But I don't have under 100 items in my house or anything crazy like that. But I do declutter regularly, and I have realized that having stuff is not going to make you happy. In general, having stuff beyond basic human needs is probably not going to make you very happy at all. And ultimately, that's what we are looking for when we're looking to achieve financial independence, is we're looking to get that much closer to being happier. Now let's get off of all that deep philosophical stuff right there and let's get on to something that's a little bit more lighter. But before I move on to the next rule that I followed, I just want to say real quick, this video is actually inspired by another channel's video. OurRichJourney, they had a video where they talked about rules that they followed in order to become millionaires. And that kind of inspired me to make this video about some rules that I also followed to get to where I am today. But I'll talk more about their video at the end of this video. Let's go ahead and move on to the next rule that I followed. And the next rule that I followed was to automate your financial life as much as possible. I cannot stress this enough. I think this is one of the most important rules that you need to follow. Do not do things manually. Do not rely solely on willpower, because if you do, you're most likely going to fail. I do want you to take action, but I think some of the best actions that you can take are only one-time actions that lead to long-term results. And that is what automating your finances is about. Set it up once. Set your auto pay on your credit cards up to pay the full balance off once. Set up your contributions to your Roth IRA. Do it only once. Set up your paycheck withdrawals that go into your 401k. You only have to do that once. So things like this that only require one-time action, they're going to have long-term effects as long as you let that automation play in the background. This is literally how I got to where I'm today. I did all of those things. I set them all up one time, and then I kind of just lived my life and waited for everything to fall into place. Constantly tweaking and constantly trying to manually do things like that, it's probably just going to distract you, and it's probably not going to get you to where you want to be. So make sure that you automate your financial life, especially when you're trying to achieve financial independence. The next rule that I followed is one that I'm really glad I did, okay? I believe that taking action is important pretty much above all else, even if that's not the perfect decision. And that's why rule number 3 that I followed is don't let perfect be the enemy of good. It's better to take action, even if it's one small step in the right direction, than to get it all right the first time around. To be perfect in your execution, to be perfect in your plan. Perfection shouldn't be your goal. What should be your goal is going in the right direction. And that's why you don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. It's okay if your investments, your investment strategy, your savings, it's okay if none of that is perfect. It's okay if it is only good. It's okay if you are just doing the steps that are necessary in order to get you to where you want to go. Even if it's not the most optimal choice, even if it's not the perfect choice. Okay, so think about this in terms of the 80-20, which is that 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. As long as you are taking those 20% of those actions and you're getting 80% of the perfect optimal results, you're gonna be just fine, especially when it comes to achieving financial independence. And speaking of really good rules to follow, another really good rule to follow is hitting the like button on this video. If you're enjoying this video so far, please make sure you like it, give it a thumbs up. It really does help me out, and I would really appreciate that. That is a rule for me, to always hit the like button on my own videos, and it should be a rule for you as well. Now, next, what I want to talk about is number 4, and number 4 is to control what you can control. You can't control everything. There are so many things that are outside the realm of possibilities that we have no control over or very, very little control over. So why worry about those things if you can't control those things? This is how I thought about when it comes to investing and saving money and things like that. I knew that I can't control what my investments are going to make. I can't control if I'm going to get an 8% return, a 10% return, or a negative 5% return. What I can control is I can control my investment expenses. I can choose to invest in a broad-based stock market index fund that only charges me 0.04%. I can choose that over an actively managed mutual fund that charges me 0.5%. I can choose to invest in, let's say, a mutual fund with automatic investments because there's no charge for buying and selling shares. Instead of, let's say, back in the day, you used to have to pay, $7.95 per trade if you're buying an individual stock. So you can choose your investment expenses. All right, you can't choose what your investments are going to make. You can't choose your returns. That would be nice. But you can choose what you pay in order to have those investments, i.e. your investment expenses. Another one is that you can't choose what the tax brackets are. You can't really choose what the federal government sets as its tax brackets. What you can choose is you can choose to create the kind of taxable income that you want to create. So in a way, you can choose which tax bracket you're going to fall into, within a certain reason. You can choose to contribute to a 401k and reduce your taxable income. You can choose to have an HSA and reduce your taxable income. You can choose to contribute to a Roth IRA and qualify for the saver's credit, if your income is within those thresholds. So you can't choose the tax brackets, but you can choose, to a certain degree, which tax bracket you're going to fall into. You can't control the price of what things cost around you. You can't control the price of the camera that's in front of me. You can't control the price of the laptop of what it costs, but you can control what kind of items that you buy. You can't control the price of a new car, but you can control the price of what kind of car you're going to buy. You can't control the price of housing, but you can control where you buy a house. You can control the size of the house that you're going to buy. This is something that I learned to, contend with, and that is control what you can control and try not to worry too much about the things that are outside of your control because you can't control them, so why worry about them? Next, I have another one that's actually pretty fun to talk about because this one can go either way depending on who you're asking. So a rule that I set for myself on my path to financial independence was do not use any debt. Any kind of ongoing debt was a no-no. I'm not going to have any debt when it comes to, purchasing something. I'm not going to have any debt when it comes to purchasing a new car. I'm not going to have any debt when it comes to getting a education. So these are the kind of rules that I set for myself that basically said no debt. That's my rule. It was a pretty simple rule to follow, and I followed it the entire time on my path to financial independence. I didn't even use debt when I purchased my house. Now, I did plan to use a mortgage for it, but that's a whole nother story. But I ended up paying cash for the house as well. It's not about this being an optimal decision. It was just a rule that I set for myself. Yes, it's true. Maybe sometimes it does make sense to use debt technically. Maybe it is a little bit more optimal if you can borrow, let's say, a car loan at 3% over 6 years rather than pay cash for the car all at once. However, there's never a perfect right or wrong answer when it comes to using debt. And so what I did was I just made the rule for myself, no debt along my path to financial independence, and it allowed me to get to where I am today. So maybe it's a rule that you can consider for yourself as well. Now, this all leads me to a big question here. I want to know from you in the comments below, what kind of rules have you set for yourself? Do you have any rules that you set for yourself when it comes to, your finances, when it comes to saving money, investing, or what have you? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to see what you have to say. Now, I do have one more rule that I want to share with you that I followed on my path to financial independence. And this one, I think, still resonates really strongly with me today. And that is to cut as many fixed expenses as possible so that you can enjoy more discretionary spending. So what this means is getting down your bills that charge you every single month a fixed amount. Get those down as low as possible. Because when you have a low fixed expenses, then you can have more money to enjoy for your fun money, for the money that you spend on variable expenses that are more within your control, that might vary, month to month, day to day. And the rule that I've kind of always had for myself, it's a little, informal, but I've always wanted to have my fixed expenses be at least equal to or less than what my variable expenses were. So for example, if my fixed expenses was $1,000 per month, then my variable expenses, they needed to be at least $1,000 or more per month. And the reason for this is that I don't believe that in most circumstances, your fixed expenses are going to be any kind of expense that's going to lead you to being happier. And if you can get those fixed expenses down down, you can be a lot more flexible in your life when it comes to many different kinds of situations that you might have to find yourself in. So let me give you a few examples here. You're not going to be any happier by paying for $75 a month internet when you can get the same speed internet for $50 per month. You're not going to be any happier when you're paying $50 per month for your cell phone bill when you could find it somewhere else for $25 per month. You're not going to be any happier when you're paying $50 a month for your auto insurance when you could be paying $40 a month at a different company for the same kind of coverage. Those are examples of fixed expenses where if you can get those really, really low, you're going to have the same quality of life because you're going to have more money available for saving for financial independence. You're going to have more money for spending on fun stuff that you want to spend your money on rather than on those fixed bills. So that was always a rule of mine, and I highly suggest that you take it up as a rule for yourself. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this video of rules I followed on my path to financial independence was inspired by OurRichJourney's video on rules that they followed in order to become millionaires. If you haven't seen their video on this, I highly suggest you watch their video. Okay, so I'm going to put it in a link in the description below, and it's also going to pop up on the screen right after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashflow.com, and I hope to see you next time.